Hi everybody, my name is Hope Friedman and I am the writer of the Go-To Guide for Empowering Our Youth. This is my third webinar and it's about sympathy and empathy. If you have already watched my past two seminars, then you'll know that the layout is pretty similar for every slideshow. So this slideshow won't be any different. It will be pretty similar. I'm going to be trying to talk very fluidly and not read off of a script so it can feel more like face-to-face and not word for word. Thank you for listening, and please enjoy the learning a little bit more about my book and about me. So to begin, let's talk a little bit about who I am and my purpose for this video. So as I said before, my name is Hope Friedman. I'm a high school student. Also, just before I continue, I just want to say that again, if you've watched the last two videos, you'll know that the first 5 slides or so are about the same. So if you want to skip and go to about 20 minutes in, it should start the actual content about this chapter. Sorry, let me continue. I am a high school student right now and actively participate in Girl Scouts. If you don't know what that is, it's an organization similar to Boy Scouts, if you know what that is, that empowers young girls and teaches them to be independent and empowering. But I'll talk a little bit more about that later in the webinar. To begin the process for your Gold Award, you need to obtain the Bronze and Silver Award. Again, I'll cover that later. But right now, all you need to know is that the Gold Award is the highest honor a Girl Scout can be awarded, similar to the Eagle Scout. And it's kind of what my book was written for, based on that kind of thing. A little bit more about me, though. I love helping my community outside of Girl Scouts. I love to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, so I'll let you know that I also have a website advocating for equal medical access, which is just another community I love to help. The website is called equalmedicalaccess.org, and I would love if you want to check that out and show its support. Other than that, though, I like helping in my school community when I tutor and show support through honor societies and volunteer work. And then last but not least, as I stated before, my Girl Scout community is something I actively strive to help in and lean on for support a lot. So let's get a little bit more into some technical stuff. Over here in the corner, I have a cover for my book and how it will look when you search it up on Apple Books. It's currently only on Apple Books for free, and hopefully in the future it'll show up on some other prominent sites. So yeah, I'm trying to do that now so it could be more accessible. But maybe Barnes & Noble, stuff like that. But the main factor is that it will be free. In the bullets, you can even see that I wrote accessibility. My goal has always been for this book to be free, and I think because a lot of people have Apple devices, it's very accessible. But I am trying to expand it so it's not just for Apple devices. My main goal was always empowering children. But what's special about my book is that it's not directed towards the children. It's directed towards their parents, but also just educators and people who work with children. You may also say that there's guides all over the internet, so why would I read this one and not others? And while yes, that's true, this was written with children in mind because I am a child, and I tried using my own experiences to guide the book, which is also why in every chapter I wrote about my thoughts and opinions so that adults can understand from the eyes of a child what it's like to experience these traits and how it feels to learn about them. Next, I want to embrace the emotions. As I wrote in the introduction, this book isn't here to force traits onto children. That was my... in the introduction, the first thing I wrote was, this book isn't here to force traits onto children, it's here to bring out what's already inside them and let it shine. And that's truly what my whole goal was. All kids have emotions, and I want to and I want to show adults and help them bring it out of the children and let it truly shine. My next is also kind of connected because it's not about forcing it, but just like in school, there needs to be a basis of where they start. For example, I was talking to my cousin, and he was telling me how he didn't know about the difference between empathy and sympathy. In this case, I would be teaching him the difference and showing him the correct ways to show it. My next bullet is inclusivity, and the other one's accessibility. These go hand in hand. My book can be used for all types of people, and it's also not just for parents. Like I said before, it's for educators, Girl Scout leaders, people wanting to learn more about children, maybe people who want to know how they learn, people who work with children in general. Maybe it's even a child who wants to know more about themselves, or younger children. Again, Apple Books is really accessible. I think nowadays everyone owns some sort of Apple device. But again, hopefully in the future I will be able to maybe set up some sort of PDF or a website online to hook it up so it's for anyone who has accessibility to the internet. But locally I am trying to put it in libraries. So hopefully in the near future I can do that. So in the book, I go through 8 main chapters. Of course, I started and ended with an introduction and conclusion, but as for the traits I talked about, it's as follows: kindness, confidence, empathy/sympathy, leadership, being an upstander, communication, gratitude, and honesty. Personally, my favorite in terms of writing was the leadership, because that's always been pretty big for me, especially as a Girl Scout. But that also goes similarly with being an upstander, because they're both really my favorite. Because to be an upstander, you really do need to be a leader, and to be a leader, you need to be an upstander. And sometimes even being an upstander teaches you how to be a leader, or the other way around. So I really do like those two, in terms of writing, but also in terms of showing it in my everyday life and teaching it to children and other people. So next I want to briefly talk about what's discussed in each video I'll be making. These aren't really live right now, so I don't know if it still would be considered a webinar, but that's what I'm going to be considering it about. Each day we'll have a new chapter discussed. It won't be days, it will be more like videos. That's what I meant to kind of get across with that bullet. As my last 2 videos were from a bit ago, maybe a month or 2. They were about the first 2 chapters. This webinar is chapter 3, which is empathy and sympathy. And each chapter after this will just be in chronological order. So you can watch it as a series, or you can watch it whatever spot you want to go. And I really did that. I'll go to the next bullet and then I'll explain. I'll do an overview of the book and a little bit of a book reading in a sense. It won't be word for word, but there will be big chunks of it to explain what I'm trying to get across. But of course, I'll leave out little parts of it, so if you want to go read it for yourself or copy some of the words or look what I implement it from the book, those are accessible as well. And I filmed these videos in a specific way, so if you were to go on to YouTube and you just wanted to look at, I really want to teach my child about kindness, but I don't really want to learn about her personal thoughts, I won't be offended, don't worry. Just skip to the part of the slideshow that says how to teach it. Maybe you just want to know about certain books for confidence. That is exactly what my purpose was. You do not have to you don't have to watch it from 0 to an hour long and just sit through it unless you would really want to. Then I really appreciate it. But again, it was never intended for that. It's kind of intended to skip around. And so was my book. My book was not to read it from cover to cover, even though that would be great. The whole purpose was really to skip around and see, I just want to learn about kindness right now and read about that, and maybe read the rest later or don't read the rest later, and I really made it up to that. I will talk about my writing process and my why towards the end. I really want to inspire other people and show the true transparency of what it was like for me to write this book, and how it was through Apple Books and prices, stuff like that. And then also how it relates to Girl Scouts and fundraising and stuff like that. And I want to talk about Girl Scouts, of course, and my overall journey, especially because this is what, not what it was written for, but it's heavily, I would say this is what it was written for, but it's heavily intertwined with it. And it's just something I do want to teach about and hopefully inspire others to join or even just learn a little bit more about. And throughout these videos, I will be sharing fun and personal stories throughout, so it's not just a boring long video, but there's personality. You can learn more about me, and maybe I can learn more about you in the comments or just in an overall sense. So let's continue. Next, I wrote about what it is and why it's important, just to clarify for the reader and make it really clear what I'm trying to get across. I'll read it, but take it with a grain of salt, because everyone's different and it can have different meanings for everyone. This is what I got from my experiences and what I know. But I will say that if you do read my book, inside of it, there is so many, I did it on purpose, but there's a lot of different quotes from different age groups. I got ones from my little cousin who's 9 and 10, sorry. And I got ones from my, grandparents. So there's a lot of different, not just mine too, a lot from my community who helped me out. But there's a lot of different ages because, again, everyone learns differently, and not everyone, has the same meaning. So I will say, like my cousin for this one, as I said in the introduction, didn't really know the difference, and that's okay. And that's what I wanted to really, start off with and just be able to be able to expand on that. So if you did want to know, I would talk to your child or your whoever this book is for, and just see how they understand it and how you can expand it from that and maybe add on or remove something and say, that's not really what empathy or sympathy is, and then teach them a little more about it. Okay, sorry for the typo in this. It's not what is confidence and why is it important. It's what is empathy/sympathy and why is it important. Sorry about that. So the definition for empathy: the action of understanding, being aware of, being sensitive to, and vicariously experience the feelings, thoughts, and experience of others. The definition of sympathy is the act or capacity, of entering into or sharing the feelings or interests of another. If you watch my other videos, you would know that that this chapter is different because it focuses on 2 terms rather than 1. So I'm going to read exactly what I wrote from the book. It's a little bit too long for the slides, so I'll read it off of my script. But if you want to see it or read it for yourselves, you can go into Apple Books. Okay. These terms sound similar and are often mixed up, but they have different meanings, and it's important to recognize that. Since they are commonly confused, it's helpful to teach them early and build a strong foundation for understanding what it means to be sympathetic versus empathetic. Earlier, I asked people if they truly understood what could explain the difference between sympathy and empathy. Most could identify the difference, but some found it challenging. While both are important qualities, it's essential to understand what they really mean and why they're important. Being sympathetic and empathetic is important for effective communication. When you understand how someone feels, it becomes easier to connect with them and share your own experiences. Although the words are different, both involve recognizing others' emotions and responding with care. I'm so sorry for the typos again. I did not. That was not on purpose, of course. So why is it important? This chapter is different from the others because, again, focuses on 2 terms. Sorry, I actually read that already. But, I could reiterate it. It's because it's really important to know the difference. To show it, but also to understand when people are showing it to you. How do we teach it? So, again, if you watched my other videos, you'll know that I did this one a little bit differently. So I always break it down into different age groups because, again, different age groups learns differently. A 30-year-old learns different than a 50-year-old. So I made sure to include a little bit of different age brackets. But for this one, I brought up a little bit about some topics and question starters to ask your children. And then I said whether it was showing sympathy, empathy, or both. So for a few examples, for the 3 to 6 age range, I said for empathy, this is one way you can bring it up. Talk about how they would feel if this happened to them. Use simple situations like dropping a toy or being left out. Then ask your child or whatever child, how would they feel and what would they want someone to do? And to explain both sympathy and empathy, say why is taking turns important and sharing important. Talk about how others feel when they don't get a turn and how it feels to share and include others in play. And again, I would really suggest asking them before you even start teaching, what do they think empathy and sympathy is? Because you can ask them in these kind of ways, and that's helpful too, but it's really important to know, because if they have a wrong definition of it, it can derail the whole thing, and it can make them think that it's a different thing than it actually is. For ages 7 to 12, to show sympathy, talk about how to respond when a friend is upset, stressed, or frustrated, even if you don't know exactly what's wrong. To help them understand what empathy is, ask, have you ever felt the same way as someone else? Share stories or examples of similar experiences and how that helped you understand how another person was feeling. 13 or older, to teach sympathy, reacting to someone who shares a personal loss online. Offer a thoughtful message that acknowledges their pain without making it about yourself or trying to fix anything. And when doing these activities or conversations, make sure to really include yourself in it. Make sure that you are saying things that answering the questions too and giving your insights so that they have something to kind of take from and understand what they should be saying, and they can answer it, and then maybe you help them out a little bit. So it's like a little bit of group effort. So some other ways to encourage and foster it is imagining other situations, which is really important. Talk through real or made-up situations and how people might feel. This really teaches empathy, and I think this one's really good because you never really know how someone else is feeling. Even through these activities, you don't know how someone else is feeling. You don't know what they're going through, or you can only see them on the outside. You don't know what's going on the inside. So it's really important to just explain it to them. You don't need to say exactly how this person's feeling, because in the real world, in these situations, you wouldn't know. So that's why it's important to treat everyone with kindness, and that's what it's important to get that across. Next is matching faces and feelings. Match pictures of facial expressions to feelings and situations. This teaches empathy. This is important for younger children especially. It might be harder for them to identify it, but again, they're surrounded by it every day. They can tell by sometimes tone, especially growing up. As they grow up, they can understand tone and facial expressions from how people are feeling, and that's really important. But maybe even just bringing it out and showing them this is how they are feeling, and this is how you should react. And sometimes there doesn't need to be reaction. Maybe just be with them. So it's really important to just communicate that and tell them what they should be doing and what it looks like. Taking care of living things shows sympathy. Share responsibility for caring for a plant or a pet. This again just teaches. They don't have the exact feelings, but it does teach them some sort of responsibility and understanding for how another animal, in a way, is feeling, and they can take it off of that. Switching roles, pretend to be someone else to see from their point of view. This is harder even for older people to see how other people are feeling, and I think it's just important, especially as they grow up, to see all the perspectives and understand why they might be upset, and not just seeing it through some sort of like tunnel vision. So, and I think that's a bigger issue for adults nowadays, and I think it's just really important to teach when they're younger. In these webinars, I always share a few books that either I've read or I've gotten suggestions about, or other people, friends, family, community have told me about that show whatever chapter it is. So Empathy and Sympathy today. I put The Rabbit Listened by Corey Dowerfeld. Just a really good book about understanding and just listening, not having to really react and fully understanding what someone means, but just to listen and communicate that you understand. Not that you've been through it, but that you understand. So, next, the Last Stop on Market Street by Matt Della Penna. Sorry. Again, similar ideas. All of these have very similar ideas. Inside and Out and Back Again by Sana La. Again, very similar. This one's for older kids. It's more, not chapter book, but definitely larger and maybe a little bit more complex, more emotions and feelings. Next is Wonder by R.J. Palacio. I think a lot of children read this nowadays. I read this when I was little. Definitely stuck with me. And even watching it with my parents, you could see it really stuck with them too. So, recommend it for really any age group. I would wait until they reach at least maybe 10, but they can still understand it. So, and the book is amazing in the movie as well. So, it's more of a chapter book though. And Have You Filled a Bucket Today by Carol McLeod. I read this one when I was in 4th grade. It's a smaller book. My teacher read it to me in 4th grade. And it's really just about being kind to everyone and doing good deeds throughout the day and getting it back to you. And sometimes not even getting it back. Sometimes just doing it because for the good of it. And then we did an activity afterwards where we each had a bucket and we filled other people's. And it was definitely a good activity. Next, here are some websites that are good for some resources. And learning more about it for your understanding, but also for helping teach the children. They have great workbooks, stuff like that. You can always search it up online too. Great resources, but these are the ones I found. Harvard Graduate School of Education, Making Care Common Project. If you go onto my book, you can have the link too. It has it there. And the Bonnie Harris Connective Parenting, Creating Parent-Child Relationships That Last a Lifetime. This one doesn't have to be parent-child. It can really be any relationship, but it's geared more to that. So you can click on the links on Apple Books or, explore something like that. Again, these are just a few resources, but there's a whole load of internet that you can find everything on, and I would also be happy to help with any questions, concerns, even just about the book in general. I would love to hear some feedback about that. So, unrelated, but if you do have questions about Empathy and Sympathy, specific ones, what I meant in the book, what are some more activities, I would be happy to help. Next is my personal thoughts. I love this section because it just shows what I take away from this, which can be very different for other people. So I am sharing a little bit about myself here, and again, my favorite part of every chapter because, well, not to be biased, it is about myself, but as a child, it's important to show it, and this is really the part that I think makes my book different. So I'll read it from the book itself. The difference between sympathy and empathy is something I am still actively learning and working to understand better every day. The people I talked to about it surprised me for many reasons, mostly because I was a little unsure myself. After researching, watching countless YouTube videos, and doing a deep dive into what each word really means, I can now confidently say I understand the difference. To be empathetic means you are able to connect with someone else's feelings. You do not have to say you understand what they're going through, because maybe you truly do not. Maybe you may not have experienced the same situation, but you are still there for them, giving comfort and support. To be sympathetic means you understand what someone is feeling, and you let them know it's okay to feel that way. You may have gone through something similar, but does not mean. But does that mean if you haven't experienced what they're going through, you can't sympathize with them? No, that's not true. Even if you weren't in the same exact situation, you have most likely experienced the same thing. That was just a little bit of my personal thoughts about how I was a little bit unsure at first. I wanted to share the true definitions of empathy and sympathy to tie it up, and yeah. So next, let's talk about the writing process. This is less about the chapter, but it's more about how I got onto Apple Books, and I want to share this so I can help other people, hopefully, in the future. So how long did it take me to write the book? It took me around the whole process, from even just thinking about ideas to thinking about writing a book, 2 years most likely. The writing itself, I have a shorter book. It was very easy, especially because it's very numerical. It's very this, same categories for each chapter, doing it like that. So that took me about half a year, 6 months. But it did take me a lot of time to get advice from community and help in that kind of way. And that's really just about patience. For the publishing itself, that took around, I want to say, a month, maybe less. With Apple Books, it was very smooth and easy to do, and I'll talk about that in the fourth bullet. So, others' opinions. This might sound weird at first, but getting others' opinions is so important, because let's say your community has 5 books about cooking, and you want to bring that new cooking book. You want to say, I want to teach about this specific cuisine, and you put out this perfect survey. You ask, do you guys want to learn about this cuisine? Do you want more cooking books? They say, we don't need more cooking books. We already have these cooking books. That is important to know. Do they want the book? Are you going to get profit off of it? And do you want to? For me, it was never about the profit. It was always about giving back to my community. And honestly, that's really what a Gold Award's about. It's not about profit. It's not something I thought about. It's not something I should be thinking about. And I'll talk about that in a second, but it's not about profit. But if you were to do something for profit, you might want to talk to your community first and just see others' opinions. But within the writing process, it's just really important to have someone to rely on and talk to, and see if it's a good idea to put this in the book, if they thought it was good, even just someone to proofread and make sure that your grammar is correct or what you're saying makes sense. And so it's really just important to have others' opinions, and even putting out a survey and asking, like, do you want this specific recipe? Do we like these type of murder mysteries? Are we in demand for this kind of book genre? It's just really important to get others' opinions, and I could not stress that more. For me, it was always important just to have either a parent, an aunt, an uncle, friends, even teachers, something like that, to guidance and talk to them. Getting the word across is extremely important too. For me, I'm doing these type of webinars that get people into listening to them, so it's not as boring, I'd say, to then reading the book cover to back, but also it teaches people about the book. It lets them know about it. They say, hey, I just wrote a book. I'd love if you go check that out. Here's a little explanation of what it's about. Or even if you don't want to read the book, here's what it's about in one video. And if you want to read more, perfect, go on to whatever site it's on and go purchase it. Again, if you do have it for money, maybe you just want to have a video about something small, not explain a lot. But for me, because it's free, I love to make something accessible, and that's why I'm making these videos in the first place, and to get the word across. But if you do want to put it on Facebook, Instagram, make an own website, those are perfect ways of getting it across. And even just the community, putting it on the libraries, talking about word of mouth. So those kind of ways are extremely important too. The publishing process itself was pretty easy. Apple Books makes it really easy. I did the whole writing through Apple Pages, which again is really easy to do. Even if you have something lower budget like a phone, I use a computer, but if you do have a phone, it is easy to write with too. You just write it all down, you download it, you download your cover page, press download, and it says you press publish, you upload both of the files, and that you send it up onto Apple Books. It takes about a day to get approved on all the sites in different countries, I believe, but it's very simple. And I'm not exactly sure how it works for getting money because I didn't do that. It might be a longer process, but if you are looking for just doing it for free and helping the community or whatever your purpose is, it's a very easy process. I can't speak on behalf of other sites for writing or publishing. That's just what I know for now. But there are definitely good resources online if you are looking to do that. I'm not an expert though on Apple Pages or books, so you might want to look it up or look on some other YouTube videos for that. But I'm just sharing my personal experiences and that I personally liked it. Next is Girl Scout and Gold Award information. I will start off by saying I've been in Girl Scouts since I was in first grade. I love Girl Scouts, and it has taught me a lot. It has taught me empathy and sympathy to start with, leadership, confidence, all of the things I'm talking about in my book. It has taught me that, and especially being empowering and being a leader. Those two are the two main things I've learned from Girl Scouts. I am fortunate enough to have two amazing troop leaders and an amazing troop, and we did so many things together that it really just taught me sisterhood and togetherness. And I have gotten this far. I've done my bronze and silver award, and now it's my last giving back to the community. My last award, gold award, and that is your last, giving back to the community, basically. It's just doing something good and putting it all out there, saying, this is what I learned, this is what I want to show for it, and I want to give all the experience that I've learned, take it all from Girl Scouts, and put it out there, and hopefully inspire someone else to be a better person in the end. And that's what I really like about Girl Scouts. I personally had a great experience with it. I've been on many field trips. I've done so many booth sales, cookie sales, but I've done so many things within Girl Scouts, projects, presentations. It has taught me so many things that I couldn't have learned anywhere else. So it has truly been an experience. For the Gold Award specifically, though, you have to complete your bronze and silver award before. That's one step to getting to it. I believe there's another step by getting some sort of journey. I'm not exactly sure. That's beyond me. But for me personally, I got my bronze and silver award before. I highly recommend, if you have a child interested in it, definitely look into local troops, talk to your local council, and see what kind of enrollment you can get into. I highly recommend it, and it is something I will never regret joining. To get the Gold Award, there's a certain amount of hours, stuff like that, but I would really just look on your own for that, because I'm not an expert at all, and I'm just here to tell you that I am here I'm here completing my gold award, and I'm trying to give back, and that's really all I can say. But I definitely recommend it. So if you are interested, definitely check some sort of local council out. Yeah, but Girl Scouts for me has been very supportive and helpful in all throughout my life. Next is question time. So I've taken some questions from the internet that I've just seen around that people are confused about. Some questions in my community that some people just want to know. Some questions that I just curated that might be helpful for someone. So what is the difference between sympathy and empathy? I said it before in my personal thoughts, but I'll just sum it up a little bit. Sympathy means that you're feeling for someone, understanding what that they are in pain and feeling some sort of concern for them. Again, like I said before, it doesn't mean that just because you haven't experienced exactly what they're going through, it does not mean that you can't sympathize with them. It only means that you haven't been in the exact situation, but you have most likely experienced something very similar to it. So maybe you haven't experienced a death in the family, but you have experienced sadness in some way or another. It's not exactly the same, but you can still sympathize with them and understand. Empathy means feeling with someone, putting yourself in their shoes and trying to experience their emotions. So maybe you're trying to understand how they're feeling from their perspective. So it's not just sadness, but maybe it's something else that you are missing. And it's not always something that you need to understand, but it's something that you just need to be with them and listen for. Is empathy better than sympathy? Not at all. Both have value, but they serve different purposes. Empathy fosters deeper connection and understanding, while sympathy offers comfort and care, even if it's from a distance. The context determines which is more appropriate, and the context and the person, really, depending on what you have experienced and what you can offer to the situation. Can someone have sympathy without empathy? Yes. A person can feel sorry for someone's situation, sympathy, without fully understanding or sharing their emotional experience. Why is empathy important in relationships? Empathy helps people feel understood and valued. It strengthens emotional bonds, improves communication, and builds trust in relationships. All types of relationships, professional, family relationships, school relationships, all that kind of thing, especially with peers and children. What is an example of sympathy and empathy in real life? If someone, this is actually very similar to what I said before, so, but I'll just reiterate it. But if someone loses a loved one, sympathy would be, I'm so sorry for your loss. Empathy would be, I can't imagine how hard this is for you. I'm here if you want to talk. I love that example. It's very accurate. Both of them are reasonable. Neither of them is the wrong thing to say. They're both just different ways of approaching it depending on what you have experienced, honestly. Can you learn to be more empathetic? Absolutely. Empathy can be nurtured through active listening, open-mindedness, exposure to diverse experiences, and practicing perspective taking, which is specifically why I included in the activities looking from another perspective, looking from another person's shoes, seeing what it really feels like to walk a mile in their shoes and understand that just because you haven't gone through it doesn't mean that it's not something that is there and you still need to be aware of it. What are the types of empathy? There are a few types of empathy, actually. There's cognitive empathy, understanding another's thoughts or perspectives. Emotional empathy, sharing another's feelings. And compassionate empathy, taking action to help based on understanding and feeling. Can too much empathy be harmful? Sorry, I actually don't want to. I want to skip that one. Well, actually, I will go over briefly. Can too much empathy be harmful? Yes, it can be harmful for the person themselves. If you are constantly putting yourself out there and showing a lot of empathy, it can make it harder to set boundaries and say you want to focus on yourself. It might be harder to say that. It might just be easier to focus on other people. Or not easier, but easier to say. Healthy empathy includes caring without losing your own emotional balance, which is really important. At what age do children start to show empathy? Children begin to show early signs of empathy as toddlers, around 1 or 2 years old, by imitating care behaviors, which is very important, and why I'm trying to enforce it from a younger age, because like offering a toy to a crying peer, they see that and they do that. Even though it's a small gesture, they still feel it, and they're still showing some sort of empathy. So that's why it's really important to just help, important to just like nurture it as they're younger and as they grow up, so it makes it easier for them. How can parents teach empathy and sympathy to children? Hopefully by now you already know by the many resources I have showed you. But you can, again, model behaviors, talk about feelings openly, read books like I've showed, encourage kindness and perspective taking during conflicts, practicing regularly and showing them that. And even reading a book, not even about sympathy and empathy, but just saying, like, how do you think this person's feeling right now? Why do you think they're feeling like this? And that can just help them in a situation that maybe their friend is feeling that. Now they know how to respond. Now they know a little bit more about what they're feeling, even though it's not perfect. Not exactly how they're feeling. Thank you so much for listening. I really hope you learned a little bit more about me and my book. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate it. Consider checking out my book. There's a lot more in there that I didn't talk about. I did that on purpose, so it's you can go there and read more about some things that I haven't talked about. But thank you so much for listening. If you want to learn about another topic, you can skip to that video once I have it posted, or you can go directly to the book version on Apple Books if you are having trouble finding that. Thank you so much, and see you on the next video about leadership.